Hello and welcome back to Deconstructed. I'm your host Sam Animo Mackenzie, and with me, as always, Harry Nero Richard. Harry, how you doing, brother? You seem like
I'm
you're a
doing
bit
well.
rushed off your feet.
Rushed off my feet? No, I just, just packing up. Got boxes just under camera shot. Moving home, but I'm doing well. Other than that, just caught me a good time, haven't you? Really
I
good
bet
time,
you're glad
as
you now
always.
have to waste half an hour of your life talking about a shit Counter-Strike team. Or maybe not shit. I don't really know how you feel about them, but we'll get to that. We
You
should
know I'm gonna
probably.
love them.
Yeah, I'm worried about that. So let's talk about the team, right? Let's talk about NaVi. It's the first kind of repeat episode we've done, I believe. Our very first episode was on NaVi, and it was a fucking very different team then. There's only two, technically three of them remaining, and it was one of the, I think it's fair to say, more bizarre moves of the recent off season. Like
You reckon?
maybe it was to be expected they go international after losing like Electronic and Perfecto and not really losing Nipple because he was shit. Uh, but you can't tell me with a straight face that you don't see AleksiB and JL and I'm in that fucking NaVi jersey and you don't think that's slightly fucking weird. Because it fucking is. Go on.
Well, yeah, of course it's fucking weird. Any international player, if it was Nico in a Na'Vi jersey, it would look weird. Like it's a Na'Vi jersey. It's for Ukrainians and Russians. Like that's just what we've been conditioned to think. But like, okay, yeah, okay, I get the angle of they've just looked at the major and gone, oh, who was like popping off at the major and just got them, and then Alexi was available at a good time, whatever. Like it does look a little bit like thrown together, but I feel like I'm like it's Blade doing this. I don't think I think people overestimate the importance of the major in the selection of Ema and JL. I think they've been good all year, and I think JL especially definitely character driven signing. Ema, like, yeah, of course the major's a factor, but he should have been on teams' radars before the major. He was good 6 months before the major, probably. Like he's been this like star player. Like obviously not as good as at the major because that was just ridiculous. But I don't know. I think everyone was going to look at the team and say it's bizarre, but I don't think it's the worst gamble they could have done.
What would have been the worst gamble?
Well, staying Ukrainian, probably.
Yeah, fair. I mean, there's not.
Because they wouldn't have been able to sign any of the good Russian players or the
Yeah,
bad Russian
for
players. But
for
so
as for as strong as the wider region might be at the moment, Ukraine itself, I'm not sure how much talent
yeah,
is
you'd have to
coming
have
out of
simple
Russian
rifling,
play.
wouldn't you? Simple rifle, wonderful little thing, like fear is it?
Fear, some die young, and
Ankara, whatever. Yeah, I mean
Simple
it's
has named
garbage.
as a roster before. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm gonna say straight off the bat because you're obviously fucking Mr. fucking Mickey Mouse positive all the fucking time.
That's just not true. That's just not true.
All right, be quiet. I'm gonna say right off the bat, I don't think this team's ever gonna work. I mean, like, look, we were both in Cologne. We saw them after winning games. We saw them after losing games. JL might be there for vibes, sure, but you've got to be the fucking vibesiest geezer on planet Earth to make this fucking roster look like they don't just work together. Like, I didn't
I
see these
know.
motherfuckers talking once. Fucking Simple was fucking out of there before everyone else. He was fucking back in there before everyone else. And that, like, when it's that, when it's not like fucking first in, last out, it's not the whole like, oh, he just tries so much. It's like, nah, he just don't want to be around these fucking people. Like, I mean, that's
He
like,
was like that with the old team too, though. Like this is
oh yeah, but like, it was a little less. I actually saw him speak to the others before. I've
it's one major for
never,
the others.
I've never once seen him speak to these people. But yeah, I don't think this roster's ever going to be particularly great. But how about we start with Simple, right? Because Simple's got what a 1.2 rating since this roster's formed. It still makes him one of the best players in the world. I think what is it, like seventh this year, eighth this year, some shit
Yeah,
like that.
something like that.
It's still ridiculous, right? But is it fair to say that he no longer feels like Simple?
Yeah, I think he's lost a little bit of the scare factor. Like I've not seen someone like say it and like meant even mention him as like as someone they fear in an interview for a long time. Like you've got people coming out left, right, and center just saying like, "Oh, how like scary Zoe is," like and all this. Like, it's just no one's really doing that for Simple anymore, and I think that's kind of where you're at. It's kind of like he still has a good rating, but like you can't disassociate the name value from that rating. And this rating is like of an inconsistent up and coming orb, but it's not like I think it's 1.15 on LAN. I just looked like which is it's still really good, but like come on, this is simple. Like when you dream about what the potential of this Navi team, it's not with simple at 1.15. Like it's simple at zero point 0.8 kills per round like every other year. Like this is not where he should be at. And there's probably lots of reasons for that. I think it's now you can never remove the war as a factor, but it's like okay, this is the new reality now. Like this is what we're looking at, and he is just worse than he used to be. Like it's just I don't know if it's in decline or just he's waiting because the thing with Simple is I'll just pose this question. Whatever, fuck it. Like, do you think it's the type of thing where if he's got a team that he really thinks can win trophies, like he'll just be back and be good? Because I wouldn't be surprised if like as soon if Ema does get clicking or whatever, I wouldn't be surprised if then suddenly he was just amazing again. Like that wouldn't surprise me at all.
Um, I think. Look, we've seen Simple on some fucking shoddy rosters. We've seen what he did with Liquid, and
As an up and comer though,
as
never
an up and
as
comer,
the go.
sure. I don't think that's necessarily true. I don't think that's necessarily true. I mean, sure, you can argue he wasn't the GOAT in like 2018 or whatever, but he's fucking getting there. Like people have been calling him
Yeah.
the GOAT for fucking years. Let's not pretend like it was something where it was like, oh, longevity. Like, no, it wasn't. It was just this guy is fucking better than anyone we've ever fucking seen before. And we've seen him on teams with absolute fucking bums. Like Edward, Flamey, I don't care, should have been gone before Edward. Fuck what anyone tells you. Zeus, obviously fantastic in-game leader. Not sure he knows where a mouse is on the desk though, let alone how to hold one. And
But this
I
is
think I think when you go from that and every time you win a game it's because you've done fucking incredible or Flamey's actually like maybe in that one game managed to do well. And then you get electronic, right? You get electronic and it's getting better because now you've got this deadly duo. And then you end up with Perfecto, you end up with Boomich, you end up with that roster that actually had the capabilities to be dominant, even if it was for a 6-month period or whatever the fuck it was on LAN. I I do think it must be hard to not lose motivation after that. Like you said, and you get this tournament winning team, and maybe he comes back. I'm just not sure I see it though, because I think it's harder to get it back than it is to get it in the first place.
I know, but it's fucking simple we're talking about, isn't it? Like it's that sort of thing. This team will only succeed if Simple is back. I think that's probably obvious. Like that's doesn't take a genius, but it's just that thing of are you hopeful that he can or not, and you obviously aren't really. Like you kind of think this is just new normal. Like it's more of like a Ronaldo situation in football. Like it's
Okay,
just never
okay,
gonna be the
okay.
same.
I got,
But
I got,
I
I
don't
got,
know. I
I
think
got
he could.
two questions, or like two kind of points to go with that, right? So one, you can't ignore the war. Obviously, Simple's been very vocal from the start of it about how it's affecting him. We had the whole ship the fucking hotel with Pro League and stuff where he said he might take a break because he's tired of living out of a hotel in was it Lisbon, or is that where he's now bought a place? I can't remember.
No, he lives in Poland now.
Okay, well, there was something to do with Lisbon at some point. Fuck knows.
He's
Um,
settled again now though.
so there's obviously this factor, right? But then you've looked into this because you wrote a whole fucking article about it, and there's also the age thing and like kind of when you see peaks and declines. Do you not think as well, like we don't know how long that war's going to go on. That's always going to affect his motivation. Like he's basically admitted that himself. Do you not think that we're also maybe getting to a point where he's just maybe going off the edge of the cliff anyway?
Yeah, I mean, it's like if you're on the graph, it's you're on the downturn, and And that's the thing is when you talk about the goats in most sports, to be fair, and like Simple's already had so many games under his belt. I think he's like 18 when he was in Liquid, just carrying them to a major semi. Like this is he's got a lot of miles under the hood, and it's that type of thing where like yeah, like decline is inevitable. You just kind of always assume that someone like Simple's going to be immune to it. But yeah, this is like kind of the point you'd expect a normal person to drop off. But I can't. It breaks my brain to try and think of Simple as a normal player that has normal declines. I really thought he would just be the best player in the world until he decided to just he couldn't be asked anymore. Like I'm still like he has kind of lost that aura a little bit, and I just don't really understand how he can get it back. Like he's still making the same rotations. He's just like I don't know what it is. He's just a little bit more inconsistent once he's in the spot to deliver. Like you
I
never used to doubt Simple getting a multi kill if the people came to his site. These days, like, it's just happens quite a lot.
I just think it's proved that Simple is Ronaldo, not Messi. I don't think Messi's ever lost his aura, and I think Simple has.
Oh, I think
So
Messi did a
there,
bit. I'll be
there
honest.
we can do the. No, no, no. I mean that's a different conversation that I'm sure we'll have.
Well, yeah, if it's simple Zyru, then it has to be simple as Ronaldo. Simple's the harder worker, Zyru's the effortless. Doesn't give a fuck.
Yeah. But at least now we know how to do our analogies, which is a good thing for us. But yeah, I think with Simple, obviously, as it has been with Navi for years, even the post-COVID roster, like Navi's success is always going to ride on Simple. I'm kind of getting to a point now where I actually think it might be better for Navi, and it's hard when you've got someone as good as Simple was to really contemplate this because when someone is that good, like of course your success is going to ride on him. Um, but I think it might be a good thing for Navi to look for a way to have more sustained success outside of Simple, to have a squad like a Vitality or a G2, because they don't have that with this one. Let's not pretend like this team's any form of fucking super team. I'm not even sure it ever has the potential to be one. But I think it would maybe be better for them to just know they've got someone in the background and not just have people that they just fucking sell like Munacy and Headtrick, even though those two are different
Yeah,
caliber players
looking back,
themselves.
that's one of the worst transfer decisions that you'll ever see, isn't it? Selling
Oh,
Marcy, like it's just
outrageous, outrageous.
like I I know they were the best team in the world, and I know that he was probably gagging to like join a team, but you've got to have some sort of scummy buyback clause, like Shuey going back to Miles. Like you're not telling me that's not because they've got some kind of like first option on him or something. Like I've even heard it might have been just a full on loan, but like it's
Well, it
that
was
type of thing.
originally a loan. It was
How do you
originally a
not
loan,
do
and then
that?
they said that they'd sold him, but not sure they
Yeah,
did.
whatever. But this is what I mean. Like, if you have Monacy on the AWP and Simple on the rifle, like
It's a
now,
better team.
that's
Better
like
team.
succession planning, right? Like, it's really important to have a plan for when your best players go shit. Astralis didn't have one. I mean, it's obviously it's the hardest thing to do in
No
any
teams had
sport.
one. No
It's the
team in
hardest thing to
CS
do in
had one.
any sport. Nip didn't have one. Like, because it's what makes the great managers great in football. Like Sir Alex Ferguson, like tactically, people will say whatever. But what he was really good at was cycling out players when they got bad. He was good at replacing people, and it worked right up until actually Ronaldo left. Really, like he still won a few titles, but yeah, team was pretty mudded. Like, but this is the thing that CS people don't do because Navi is the biggest brand in Counter Strike, definitely. Their games get way more viewership than everyone else. If you if someone has heard of Counter Strike, they've probably heard of Simple. Like there's not a world they remove him. This is the thing. Like this is, I think you're right. I think if you're in a team with Eam, Bit, JL, they're all quite young. Like JL's definitely not fragile, but Ema and Bit seem quite fragile in terms of probably not going to react the best to being shouted at. Like I know you kind of assume Bit would be, but he's very meek, really, isn't he? Like it's that type of thing. Like I think AleksiB in a project team with those three riflers, like it could be a solid team. It could be a really solid team, but you've got this specter of Navi, the organization, and Simple, the player, that's just over them, and you're just looking at it, and you're just like, fucking hell, like this is not going to be good enough quickly enough for people to be happy about it. Like you can only be on board with a project for so long before you're like, you got to have show results here, and I just hope Simple will be on board for long enough for that to happen, because I do think that like they've got the pieces to make that work, but he's just such a big question mark at the moment. When you think about the team, he was never supposed to be one of the question marks. He was supposed to be the guaranteed, and then you worry about the rest of it. But it's just not helping. It's just not helping.
Well, we should probably move on to one of the others, but before we do that, I want to make a bold prediction. I want to see if you agree with it. This Navi team, in the case of Simple, it's either A, the last Navi core that Simple plays with, and he moves elsewhere, and he'll be one of the first people to go, or B, this is just the last Counter-Strike core he ever plays with. I think there genuinely could be a good chance that we either see him retire from Counter-Strike or retire from esports altogether.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, it does. It does feel like it's heading that way. I'm not gonna argue against that one. I hope he doesn't go to a different game. I hope he really does not just try and do grass is greener shit, because that feels a little bit Michael Jordan playing baseball. That feels come off it. Like he's probably not even going to be that good if he's like his current level in CS is not going to cut it. So I don't know,
Nah, he'd still slap
whatever he
Valorant.
needs to do, to find motivation again, fine. But he's I hope he doesn't play Valorant. I really hope.
Nah, I've heard Navi Valorant needs some assistance. But anyway, let's move on. Let's talk
No one
about
cares.
IAM, right? Well, exactly. So let's talk about IAM, right? Because IAM was, yeah, okay, he wasn't the MVP, but I'm just gonna say, for me at least, he was the star of the Paris Major.
Biggest story.
He was wicked to watch the whole time. And when you look at it, after the fact, even during, it's an overperformance. He's not suddenly just become fucking Nico. But you look a little deeper and you're like, okay, he's been performing pretty well at a tier 2 standard, like well enough he should already be on a tier 1 team, sorry, but maybe not to the point where you're like, oh shit, the best player in the world in 2 years' time has just appeared in tier 2. On Navi, he's got his tier 1 chance, and it felt like maybe he'd been signed to be that star rifler. Not gone too well, has it?
No, and we've both been very very vocal that we rate I'm, despite what's happened so far. Like the Game Legion episode may have aged badly if you're looking at this short term, but
Awfully.
it's well, but I genuinely think Ema he's in that category where he's an aggressive rifler, which means you need to be patient with him, you need to give him freedom, and you really need to build his confidence up. And I just think from just looking at the like general vibe, which is obviously stupid, but you know what I mean when I say that Imma does look like he's suffering a little bit under like it's what I was saying before. It's the weight of the organization, but not just that. Yeah, he's in all the star roles and he's got their worst rating on CT side. Like it is
Does he just have the
unacceptable
worst
for what's
rating full
happened so
stop?
far. Yeah, yeah,
Isn't
but
it
like
T side as well?
you'd think like okay, like he's struggling on T side because he's very aggressive or something. No, he's shit on CT side as well, which is
Oh,
even
right.
more
No, I get what you're
unforgivable,
saying.
right? Like, yeah, and it's I don't know what you do, because maybe it's that Chewy factor and things that just much more comfort. Like I know how much Ash has spoken about really like that team was the EMA team, and this team is always going to be the simple team. And as much as they like an opener rifle, like they shouldn't have any overlap, but when you're stars, like there is overlap, because if in Game of Legion, if EMA wanted to make a play, he could make that play. In Navi, you've got Simple, you've got AleksiB has his own ideas and plays a lot of good spots where he can make plays. And I don't think it's a freedom issue. Like from what I've seen, he still has lots of freedom. But on T side, he's doing a lot more hard entering than I thought he would do. He's doing like in Game Legion, he was like the kind of lone wolf, aggressive lurker, like the Nico. That's what he was. And then in this team, it's like he's at the front of the pack a lot, and that's not what I really like. I want him away from the pack, able to make his plays, and I think that's definitely a factor in it. It's just a little bit of comfort, but overall, I don't think it's a roles thing. I think it's a confidence thing and a pressure thing, and suddenly all the spotlight's on you. Everyone's watching your demos, and it's a different fucking ball game.
Do you worry that, that with that demo factor, there's a chance that we never see IAM succeed in tier 1?
No, I think people normally what happens, you have your breakout, and then you struggle a little bit, and then you come back and you're consistent at wherever you land, right? That's what happens to most people, including Bit. We'll get to him. Um, but I think he'll come back up to a lot higher than where he's at now. I think that's fairly inevitable. Like he's got the talent. Like it's as far as I'm concerned, he's got a decent IGL. He's got the coach. Like they'll work it out, and they know how important it is to work it out because you've paid big money for him. Not as big as what some sites reported, but it's still big money. Like it's a proper fucking buyout. He renewed just before the major. It's not cheap. Um, and yeah, it's just a pressure thing. It's just a pressure thing, and it'd be really sad for me if it was that kind of if he gets written off too early within his team. Like it's fine if fans write him off. Like no one gives a fuck. Like what matters is inside the team, are they still making him feel the confidence that he needs to be able to play his roles properly?
Yeah, and that is the big thing if you look at his CT side roles, right? Like uh, those roles are the most important ones. Like those are the ones that he was really signed to play, and I think, of course, you can set him up a bit in those roles, but they just need to not lose faith in that. Not say like, come on, man, you're struggling a bit. Like, you go play A this time, and we'll play connector or whatever. Like, and
Can't do that, yeah.
not move it about because that's just gonna make him feel like he's down the pecking order. But in terms of roles, then before we move on to your maybe least favorite Ukrainian player, um, before we move on, do you not think those T side roles are affecting it? Then do you not think that maybe he was
No,
signed with the wrong intention?
no, I don't. I think he's still like the overall role is still the same of just like the primary space taker on T side, like loads of freedom to make plays. I just think maybe the way the style is working, that's kind of forming itself in a hard entry role more often than I hoped it would. I thought he'd be more solo, basically. But I think the main thing is because the CT side is so bad as well, you can't write it off as just that. Like it's more than that. And I think the pressure thing, the organization thing, that's the main thing.
Yeah, I mean the jersey is definitely weighing heavy on his shoulders.
Yeah.
But let's talk about someone who, when he came into the team, he never felt that fucking pressure. He came in like a fucking superstar, and you
Did
thought at
he?
the time, he was pretty fucking
Oh,
good,
he took
mate.
a while to get going. Retcon. He took a while to get going. He was good, but he took a while.
Okay, okay. Well, either way, in their little period, you really thought like Bit was going to be some hot shit for years to come. And I ain't sure he's exactly hot shit. I'm gonna be honest. I still like him. I still feel like he headshots every kill he ever gets, even the ones he's been spraying for 30 bullets. But yeah, he's just not. No, okay, no, maybe he is Bit, but he's not. He's not the Bit that we were all thought was
Yeah.
going to be incredible, is he?
Ooh, strongly. I mean,
Okay,
it's that.
okay. Everyone apart from you.
Okay, this is
Fucking hell.
the agenda. This is where the agendas come in. I just don't. Bit is a really hard player for me to look at because people have talked too often in interviews about needing to micro him and how long he took to learn and stuff, and it just like it leaves the impression that he is just that guy with nuts aim and not much of a clue. To be honest, that's kind of like what in Simple does all his fucking interviews,
Yeah.
flaming teammates. Like everyone always assumes, like, oh, he's just flaming SDY. Like as far as I know, Simple liked SDY. I mean, it wasn't his decision. It
Yeah, I
was.
mean, Simple said
It's
multiple times he'd quite like to play with him.
yeah, he loves SDY, but it kind of felt like he was chatting shit about Bit a lot of the time. To me, to be honest, like that's kind of the impression I got. I think Bit is that kind of player whose decision making looks good when he's killing everyone, and when he's not, you kind of like, oh, okay, like this is not quite as like clean as it should be for someone as good as this that has been like very high in HW's top 20 already. Like it kind of it feels like since that like era team, the 2021 team, he's gone back into being a rookie, and it's like
Hang on, hang on. Did you?
not
Sorry,
era,
I've got
short
to put.
era. You know what I mean?
I
You
was
know what
gonna
I mean?
say it.
Short
Like,
era.
if you're having that, then I'm saying Liquid's the best era of all time.
Oh
Let's.
yeah, we'll
You
suck
can
your mum
carry on
about
now.
that.
You can carry on
But
now.
you know how I get. Yeah, like it's he was very overhyped during that era when everyone's rating goes up 0.1. just because you've won every match 16-6. Like
Does
this
that
is
make him overhyped though? I'm not sure.
he was
I
overhyped,
agree
I
with the
think.
way you view that. No, he
I
was.
think
I
he
think he
was.
was rated very fairly at that time. I think it's just a case of afterwards the team wasn't as good, and I think it is slightly
He never had a
unfair.
tournament as good as IMS in Paris. Never.
Not many players ever fucking have.
Just saying. Just saying.
Sorry, how many players have you just like completely just disregarded? Like,
Silly, you put him on. Elliot was telling me that he was better than Simple at this time. Like I'm just.
well,
This is what we're arguing against.
Elliot's insane. Elliot doesn't get an opinion. He thinks Dupree's the greatest player of all time. Like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. He might have won that argument against you, but he certainly didn't win it in reality. But like, no,
All the
I
video.
think that he did in the video. I think the way that you sometimes view players in that sense is very unfair, if I'm being honest with you. I think, yeah, okay, you can say it's a purple patch, whatever, that's fair, but rating someone appropriately during a purple patch doesn't mean that they're like massively overrated after that. It just means that sometimes, for, most people, it does take a while for them to have appropriate ratings of people. You don't see it's not like you see people still raving about Bit being like, "Oh, he's so good, he's still that." Like, nuts, like
There's a reason for that.
they don't fucking do that. But
Aggression to the mean.
it just takes people longer than it takes you. You see through purple patches quicker. That doesn't mean that someone is like heavily overrated.
Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously being a little bit harsh here, but you know what I mean. It's like I
Yeah,
kind
you
of
just hate him. You actually
he's
just
got
hate
this
him.
fucking he's got the skill set that I dislike the most in Counter Strike, which is like well not dislike, but that I kind of see through it. I don't. He's just fucking all aim. Like if I see a 62% headshot player, I'm like, so where's the gap? Where's the gap? Because people who are that fucking good at aiming don't need to
Rob
learn the same way
Twist.
everyone else does, right? He's obviously the exception.
Okay, cool.
Twist is
Okay.
nuts, but like when it's like an up and comer, like an 18-year-old, and you're like, yeah, he's so gassed, like he just hits every headshot. I'm just like, okay, so like, why is he hitting every headshot? And you look at it, and there's a lot of duds in the 60% headshot. Like this is like the Jack zone, the fucking like Masuta zone, whatever. Like I'm not.
Tizian.
Tizian's like 66%. Like
Yeah, his is
this stat
absurd.
means nothing. Like it doesn't mean nothing. But obviously, it shows a certain type of player, but I just don't care for it. And I think Bit falls in that category. But do you know what? Like in this team, he's been better than I thought he would be because he's still in the shit CT roles. Like T side is like, yeah, he's kind of got the passive lurks, which is just kind of horrible, like hard to get farm stats from. Um, well, not that obviously passive lurking is quite easy to farm stats from, but I mean more like the supportive passive lurk, like the like fucking con on overpass. I don't mean like he's not the star lurker is what I mean. He's the supportive guy, and that's kind of where you got to give him a little bit of a shout out because many people, me included, for like switching to English Bit. Like as I did an interview with him for Top 20, and he typed it in Ukrainian and gave me dog shit answers in Ukrainian. So I was just like, there's no way this guy's gonna be like. But he's got Counter Strike English. He's doing fine. He's doing fine.
I mean, he's
And
certainly got a little more English than that. You just have to see him talking to females. But there we go.
oh right, okay. Well,
Uh,
this is
uh,
the. But
oh
you
shit!
know. Oh, he's done it again. But you've got to look at Bit in this team and think he's actually. Do you know what? As much as I think he's the only one probably doing his job right now, considering his roles. To be honest, as much as I'm not high on him as like a
It
fucking
might be a
huge
little
prospect anymore,
unfair. It might be a little unfair to Simple. Like, oh, Simple's not doing his job
he's
being
not.
God.
Yes, that's his job. It's simple.
He's still
Simple's
being
job
a
is to
very
be
good
the best player
author.
in the world.
Still being a very good author. Like, I don't think
Always.
you can say anyone's job is to be God. Like, that's
Apart
unfair.
from simple, if you've got Messi in your team and he scores 10 goals a season, are you not a bit pissed off? To be honest,
Actually,
like it's just,
he's Ronaldo. Actually.
you know what I
Um.
mean.
Okay. Yeah.
Well,
Sure.
Manchester
No,
United were pissed off, weren't they? So
I agree. Right. I mean, if you if you looked at the previous Navi team to this Navi team, and you said like, oh, you get to keep one other than Simple. Bit ain't gonna have been the name you said. You would have took Star Rifle or Electronic back, or you would have took like
yeah,
one of the best support anchor players in the world, Perfecto. Like you can get 10 players like Bit. Um, yeah, he's not been bad at all considering some of the other features of this team. He's just not spectacular, is he? And I
No.
think if IM's going to perform the way IM is, and yeah, okay, it makes it slightly difficult with the roles, but it does feel like you just need someone else a bit more spectacular.
So, you say that you would rather have Perfecto in for emo and bit in star roles?
Um, look, look, I do a lot of things to get Perfecto in most teams in the world. Like there was a time you weren't so high on Perfecto. I've always been high on Perfecto. The guy's a fucking baller, and he's maybe the best in the world in his role. At least,
I'd have
yeah.
NaVi's.
I'm gonna say it with no backing. I'm just gonna say it because that's what I do. But yeah. I don't know. I don't know. Like it's one of them. Im's definitely got potential that maybe bit now you're at the point where it's like, has he already hit his peak, which kind of feels odd to say considering how young he is.
Happens a lot though. Michael Owen effect.
Yeah, of course. But it's a very different team with Perfecto, isn't it? Like it's a, it's an odd one. I'd be willing to see it though. Put it that way. I'd be willing to see it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I really I can't give you that much of a solid answer to that one, unfortunately.
Because I just don't think that's better. I'll be honest. I think if you're keeping, I think emo. I agree with you. Emo has way more potential as like an actual star rifler. I think than bit. I think we've kind of. I agree. I think we've seen enough. I think the idea that young players progress like in a linear way is just stupid. Like it's not true at all. Like we've seen bits peak and it wasn't for very long. And to be honest, I think we've also seen now at tier one, he spent more time being an okay player than being a really good player, and that's kind of where he's at now.
Yeah, and I think that's completely fair to say. I don't think he's not deserving of a spot on a team such as Navi, a team that you expect to be high up on the rankings. But I don't think, he's ever going to be a star for a team this high up the rankings. He could certainly, hate being international, take a step down within the region and be a star for a tier 2 team, but I don't think he's ever going to be a true star for a tier 1 team. I don't know if you agree with that. I feel like you do.
Yeah, I do. I do.
But yeah, so we'll move on from Bit then, because we've probably said all there is to say about Bit um,
Twice.
twice, because that there has been a slight technical difficulty and some house moving. Harry is in a different room, and we're both wearing different t-shirts. But instead, let's talk about JL, right? Because you know we both love JL. He's a fucking great guy. Um, he clearly hates you with a passion because you really stitched him up at the major. But no, it was friendly banter,
Told the
really.
truth. Told
Friendly
the truth.
banter, really. He is simply not Well, actually, he was J Legend in the end, but
Eventually.
it's a whole different thing. Anyway, so JL, right? Um, I expected JL to get a move after the major, especially with certain things I heard while I was there. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I necessarily expect it to be Navi, and obviously you've had a conversation with him about him being a support player, where he thinks maybe he's a star. He's not doing badly. Um, is he doing good enough? Like, is he maybe the wrong player for the roles he's been given in your eyes?
I mean, from the way I'm looking at it, like, and he's a good fit for the roles that he has. But I mean, if he's in the roles that he thinks he has, like if he's this star aggressive lurker, which he wanted to kind of tell me he was, then yeah, obviously it's higher expectations with that. But I think no, I think for being honest, he's got enough of those hard CT roles that you can't expect him to be a star player, and it's kind of just I don't know. He's doing what he can within the system. He's obviously learning a lot of new things. Like it's kind of like Apex had that weird system where kind of everyone could kind of just peak whenever they wanted, peak whatever they wanted. Like kind of like they barely even had a pack. They just kind of
Oh, they were so
rolled with it.
fun.
They were a lot of fun, and JL's gonna have to adapt to kind of the AleksiB style, where he's still like got a lot of freedom. You can tell on T side. That's probably why it's why he doesn't see himself as a support, because he doesn't throw any flashbangs because he's normally quite far away. Like, he does do a lot of entering, like sometimes, because Ema's normally dead already. So JL's kind of the next one up. But yeah, I don't think he's a bad fit for the role they needed. I just think, like, at some point you got to go down and see where's the star power coming from, and JL shouldn't be the one that's expected from. But if Bit and Ema aren't performing, then that burden does end up falling on him when maybe it shouldn't. Like, he's not the problem as far as I can tell.
No, I don't think. Okay, I don't think he's a problem. Maybe I phrased it wrong earlier. I don't think he's a problem at all. But I think, and I'm sure we'll come back to this point of the expectations of NaVi and what they have been compared to what they maybe should be now, in a similar way of that we've spoke about, lower down teams in the past. I think maybe it was OG we said it with, where maybe sometimes you have to change your expectations of what success is for a team. But it's very difficult when it's the likes of NaVi, because even with teams like Nip and Fnatic, it's still hard to do that, and it's been fucking years since they were actually any good at all. And I just wonder with JL, yes, he was available. He was very available. Is he exactly like that kind of firepower of pushing Navi back into the top 5 ever?
Well, it's the thing of AleksiB's not a bum, like, fragging wise, which kind of helps, because you don't really, like, you definitely can't afford like a Zippix on this team. But JL's not nowhere near that. Like, JL, Bit, and Ema are kind of the budget Nip trio of 3 people who could all be quite good at times, right? Like, that's kind of where they are, and it's
Sorry.
not budget Nip, deluxe
I
Nip,
was going to say I
deluxe
have
Nip.
to pause you for a second. Deluxe. Carry
Deluxe
on.
Nip, obviously. I've muddled my phrases. But yeah, and that's kind of where JL's at. He's not a full sport player, he's not a full star, and he's just kind of plodding along 1.0, and this is where it's at. But it's also his personality, right? That's a huge part of why he was signed. Like, that's kind of the element that he's supposed to bring that maybe they didn't have already.
Yeah, I mean, you got AleksiB, who a lot of the time looks like he wants to kill people. I don't think he actually does. Like, when I've spoke to Alexi, he seems like a fucking lovely dude. But he's got, he's got those like very cold Finnish eyes.
Yeah.
Simple. Obviously, Simple wants to kill people constantly. We've all seen him have a shout at one of his teammates, and I think that JL's personality does maybe negate. Is negate the right word? I think it is. Like, it negates where he maybe can't frag as much, but having him there to help the team will be worth it in the long run. The one thing I did want to bring up with JL though, is so in the RMR, I believe he was quite good, and then in the Challenger stage at Blast, he was very good. There was a bit of a drop off after there though. Not to call him a choker or a bottler. I wouldn't go that far. He wasn't useless. But do you think there's also going to be an aspect of, like, if this team does manage to grow, then we might see a bigger stumbling block down the line of, like, maybe a couple of these players don't have the personalities to do this, like, do these deep runs consistently, maybe even at all?
I think that's the type of thing that will take time for sure. Like, just because Ema had a really good like first big LAN in Paris on stage, like, doesn't mean he's immune to it either. Like, he struggled in the final. Like, I think when you have players that are quite inexperienced, like JL, Ema, like, that is always going to be an element of that, and that's where you're hoping that, like, Simple might struggle in group stages because he can't be asked, and then in the playoffs, that's when he should be the one really stepping up while they're getting used to it, while they're getting used to this type of pressure. But yeah, I think the thing that's really hard with assessing if someone's like a choker or a big game player or whatever is just you're never going to have the sample size, and I think that's always an issue, whatever player you're talking about, even the ones that, we're like 90% confidence down as a choker, but he's still only probably got like 30 odd maps in arenas in the last few years. Like, that's not very many. Like, you wouldn't judge a normal player on 30 maps worth of play, and JL we're talking about like 6. So it's we'll see on that one. I'm not confident calling him a choker just yet. It's just like he's playing fine in this new team, and then that's kind of where you're at. It's just fine. It's just fine. And obviously they've not been on as many stages yet. I don't think they've been on any. So we'll have to wait and see on that one.
So for you then, just before we move on, if you look at a G2 or a Vitality, who does JL have to be aiming to match?
Oh god, see that it depends where Bit lands, right? Because like profile wise, Bit is kind of more like the JKS and Magus, like in terms of the roles, which kind of means JL has to be Hunter or Flamesy level, like the 3rd star. Okay, but I think because Bit is kind of overqualified for some of those roles in some ways, like it's kind of if he's in between like 3rd, 4th star, then he's doing fine, and that's where he's at right now. Like he's doing fine relative to the level of the team. It's just kind of it's just Ema because Ema's doing worse than the spotlight's on JL, and it probably shouldn't be.
Yeah. Do you think then, just as a final point, do you think that, like we've said or we might not have, because who knows? Who knows if that was lost in the recording? I don't know. Well, I mean, we had the perfecto point, so I'll go there. Do you think that the signing of JL, it is just maybe it is to do with availability, and if there was a better player that maybe costs a little bit less than they probably do in the current economic climate, that JL would even be on this team?
I mean, I mean, yeah. Well, we know they went for higher ticket items. Like obviously they did. Obviously they tried, but a lot of these players they're tied up, and this major is kind of upset the balance like as well. Like JL, I think it's difficult to come up with a list of names that were better than him. That even available, unavailable, whatever. Like outside of like the G2 Vitality, like they probably like a lot of these players are probably attainable, but it's where you might be looking at, like the type of pickup Ents did from Endpoint, like with Nerds and everything like that. Like NaVi should be a big enough org that they can pick up players from Ents, is what I mean. Like org to org, like it's like team to team, obviously not even a conversation anymore, but organization wise, like you kind of want to see NaVi poaching from a team like Ents. That was kind of established themselves as a big dog. And if they just chuck Nerds in on these lurker roles, that's already a very different team. If you've got Ema in the pack and then Nerds as your closer, right? Like that's
Oh, it's a much better
kind
team.
of where you see for JL. But then obviously the CT roles would have to shuffle, but that would be fine. Like I think AleksiB likes having the good roles, but we saw in G2 he's not fussed if he has to give them up for like ultra amazing players. And I think maybe the fact that AleksiB has so many good CT roles is kind of not actually a good reflection on how much he thinks of his riflers, but like it is a comfort thing. Like I don't think he's saying like he's better than them or anything. It's just like if he had Nerts and like a full firing Ema, then those two should be in every rotate spot on the map, right? Whereas someone like JL, you are a bit happier shafting him a bit on rolls, and JL still likes a lot of those anchor rolls. Like he's not unhappy in them, but like these big name star riflers, they don't fuck around with playing floor on nuke. Like they just don't do it. Like it doesn't matter who's comfortable, they're not doing that. Someone else has to move, and JL's not quite there. And yeah, that's kind of where you're looking. Like if you want that good aggressive lurker, that a lot of those people are star named and they are locked up. And to be honest, JL on Apex was doing that role really well, and I think he was never obviously going to be the superstar, but that's not his job. It's not his job.
Yeah. Okay, that's completely fair. But so, all right, then let's move on, because we've mentioned him now a fair bit. Let's talk about AleksiB, right? Because you and I, we're a little higher on AleksiB than most people. I think most people do like to bash AleksiB, unless they're
Yeah,
Thorin, of course. And I think we're the ones that kind of look at it and be like, all right, Nip, he's got three of the most inconsistent halfway to dog shit riflers you've ever seen. G2, he had a Monacy that was only pure raw talent. He wasn't the Monacy that Hooksy's got. You said that Nip. It was kind of a similar story with Headtrick as well. AleksiB has said that himself. And then like Ents, obviously he did really well with Ents, and OG, kind of the best OG's ever been. So
Yeah.
AleksiB, right? Because this is the first thing that everyone will be saying, because well, it was the first thing everyone was saying, so it's the first thing we should answer. Does AleksiB deserve his spot on NaVi?
Um, it would have been him or Glaive, right? I think he's done more in the last few years than Glaive, if that's the comparison we're doing. Like, I mean, you can look at people like Kixan or something like that. Like, I mean, also throw the bank at Snappy, same point as the Nerds point. But of the people who were available, he was the best one easily, because Glaive wasn't even benched at that point. Like, there's an argument for Glaive. Not an easy one considering how bad Glaive has been as of late. But yeah, I think AleksiB is a completely solid pickup. He's got enough tactical foundation that you can see that he would be good for an international team like this. I think that the issue might be personality wise, honestly, in terms of how much control someone like AleksiB needs. Like, he's not like it's like Carrigan and Zonic actually clashed a lot because they both wanted a lot of control, right? And kind of that great, and you can't really talk about IGLs without talking about coaches. And I think AleksiB and Exeter's kind of awful clash ended up with both of them leaving. AleksiB Blade, I kind of see the same thing, honestly. I kind of see them both wanting to have control, and only one of them really is going to get a final say, because that's just how things work. Like, you can be a great partnership, but in Snappy Saw, for example, like, as much as Snappy praises Saw all the time, like, if Saw started overruling Snappy all the time, like, I'm not sure he'd love it. Like, it's supposed to be a partnership, and I think AleksiB needs to be the big dog. And in Navi, is he? Like, I don't think so. It doesn't feel like it.
So this is something I was gonna say, right? Because for some fucking unknown reason, at one point I decided to watch some Blast side content, and Henry G, he had a little interview with AleksiB and Simple, and it was actually quite interesting. But there was a point where Henry's asked Alexi about Blade and working with Blade, and Alexi said, I've come here and this is Blade's team, and I wanna learn from him. Like he's gonna have his say and all this shit. And then at the end, he's tagged on, oh, but I've told him it needs to be my way. It needs to work for me. And it's like, well, this doesn't fill me with confidence, actually, because it sounds already like there's going to be some kind of a leadership thing there. Because I kind of feel like when you look at the last two NaVi IGLs, right? You've got Boomich, who obviously he ain't the smartest bloke in the world. Like that. I mean, Blades effectively said as much. Um, and then Electronic, I've said before, and I'm adamant it's going to be proved true in the next few months. That motherfucker ain't an IGL. Like, he's a fucking fantastic player. He ain't a good IGL. I'm confident that will be proved to be true. And I feel like Blade only really wants to work with IGLs that he can comfortably mentally look down upon, that he feels superior to. And I'm not saying that Blade won't feel superior to most people, because I think he probably fucking should.
Yeah,
But I'm not sure he'll get that level of respect from AleksiB. And the point to all of this is that I feel like, and I know you're gonna say, mainly because I've heard you say it before, that, oh yeah, but like, it's still Blade's project, like he's still kind of like the GM figure. I think that's all he should be, or I think he should be like a developmental coach, for kind of a bridge between Navi Junior and Navi, or maybe trying to work individually with JL, with I'm, getting them tier one, because I think the fact he's still the coach of this new international project, to me, says, especially with an IGL like AleksiB, that Navi weren't willing to 100% commit to this project.
I this is I think removing Blade would have been insane at the time. I think Blade was one of the things that has been good about Navi. Like, and I know that he's been criticized by Simple for some of the nipple roll swaps, like sticking nipple in connector and bit on B and whatever. Like he's made
What
some
an
blunders.
interview that was.
Yeah,
That was
great
so
interview,
good.
but he's made some blunders along the way, obviously. But this is still someone who has got the best understanding of the game for my money in that region. I think if you're going to have him as a GM, he's still going to obviously have input. But yeah, I think the point about the clashes, like we see it all the time, like the Gary and Art Axis versus Fallen is not going great. Apex Zonic took ages to come to an agreement, and it was kind of like from at least from interviews, like from what Apex has said, it's kind of when Apex won that battle and kind of said, I need to call my way, otherwise this like I can't call like Astralis, like let me call how I want to call. And then that's kind of come with Dupree being a more aggressive entry fragger. That's when they started winning tournaments. Like that's when the conflict was resolved and, Apex got to call his way. And I think in Navi, it's like, how long is it going to take before AleksiB gets to call his way? Like, is he even going to be allowed to call his own way?
I doubt it.
Yeah, you're going to see. I doubt that the shackles are going to be let go, and then
But this is the thing, right,
that's
Harry? This is the
difficult,
thing.
right?
So you started this point by saying, "Oh, it would have been insane to cut Blade. He'd done this. He'd done that." Fine. Fuck it. If he's not good for the project now, he shouldn't be on the fucking team. Like it's as
But
simple as that.
I think
Like
it's
I'm
the
not,
AleksiB pickup then.
and I'm not pretending like I know who they could have fucking. But fuck that. Like at the end of the day, with how coaches are now, and like especially fucking rules at fucking majors, the IGL should be more important than the coach. It always should be, even if you got the best coach in the fucking world sat there. And
Mm.
Blade could do a lot in Navi, like as a GM, as a kind of developmental coach, and then AleksiB can have another guy there, like a Roban type figure, someone like that for in game that they wouldn't clash with, and AleksiB can do his own thing, and I think it would just be better for the team in the long run. I think for this Navi to improve, one of Blade or AleksiB will have to go, and I think for the actual strength of the roster in the long run, the better move would be getting rid of Blade.
Oh, yeah, this is it sums up AleksiB's whole career, isn't it? It's like it never really feels like he's got a proper go at the international team. Like you've laid out the asterisk with G2 and with Nip, obviously, like even worse. But and even OG, like they promised a lot, and the lineup he got in the end was like I can't remember how much of a say he had in that lineup, but that lineup was never going to win anything. Like that, he overperformed with that lineup. Like let's not get it twisted at all. Um,
What was it again?
yeah, it's just a sad thing about
It's
it's the original one was
it's
Valda, NBK, Issa, Mantu, AleksiB.
Man 2, that was the AWPer.
Like, come
Yeah.
on! Like, what's he gonna do? Like, maybe those players' stocks were higher back then. Like, obviously they were, especially Issa, and then COVID ruined them a little bit. But it doesn't feel like since the Ents team, where obviously there's like that can happen where he's a big dog in a small pond or whatever, big fish in a small pond. I'm getting my sayings really well today, but it's
You're doing good, bruv.
yeah, and this Navi team, like, if it fails again, like Alexi said himself, it should be like his last chance. Like he said that. Like I don't know if he's trying to motivate himself or what, but from the outside, like there's more asterisks. Like the Alexi V haters are still not going to win, even if he fucks this one up, because how much control does he really have? And when you just see like some of the T sides at the moment, like the amount of misutility, like that's not his fault. That's not his fault. Like it's like that nuke game, I can't remember who it was against. They got like 2 rounds on T side, and they couldn't sort out the outside smokes. Like this is not AleksiB's fault. Like he's called something that might well have worked, and it's just people messing it up.
But this is the thing that's gonna fucking suck, right? Because it's gonna be another lineup with a fuck ton of asterisks that's gonna go fucking wrong, and who's gonna get the fucking blame?
It'll be
It
him.
won't be the player missing the fucking smokes. It won't be fucking I'm pulling a fucking 0.95 rating or whatever the fuck it is when he's meant to be the star fucking rifler. It won't be that. It'll be fucking AleksiB. And it's bullshit. It is bullshit. Because maybe if he didn't have a coach that was trying to shout everything over him, maybe if you had players that were doing their fucking jobs, maybe this team would have been in the Cologne playoffs.
Yeah, but
Maybe this
at
team
the
would
end of the
look
day,
more
though, Sam.
convincing.
But at the end of the day, like it's when you're the IGL, the buck falls to you. It's like a lot of the time, like a CAO gets sacked. They've not done anything wrong. It's just that's the responsibility of leadership. Leadership takes the blame for what the team can't do. If I'm playing shit, ultimately a lot of the blame has to be on AleksiB for that. Like, it's your star rifler. You're trying to set him up. Like, yes, obviously it's about headshot and stuff like that, but think about how comfortable I'm looked in Game Legion with Ash helping him every night, like looking at things like that. Like, AleksiB can do stuff like that. I know he's got a lot of stuff going on in this team, but his priority should be Ema. Simple can be left alone. Bit is Blade's project, and just, whatever. He's an anchor. He's fine. He can headshot people. JL, fairly self-sufficient as well, to be honest. Like, obviously needs a little bit of help, but with the amount of freedom he has, like, that's something that you can leave with the analyst. Like, oh, you can lurk here or lurk there or whatever. But Ema should be AleksiB's project. Like, the way I see it, because they're both international, whatever, AleksiB and Ema should be working together most nights to try and work out how to get Ema to frag. And if Ema can't frag, well, we know he can frag. We've seen him frag under Shuey. And that's AleksiB's fault. So, as much as I agree with you that there's lots of asterisks again, at some point, if an IGL fails again and again and again, I'm going to have to flip-flop. And I always do. I do. But I need to see more from Ema to believe that AleksiB is doing enough.
I think sometimes you can read between the lines and not flip-flop. Because, right, let's say, like, the weight of that jersey compared to the Gamer Legion jersey is too much for IM to handle. There is nothing AleksiB will ever be able to do to change that. And yeah, you can say it's the price of leadership. You can say all this shit. But when you're being fucked left, right, and centre by things out of your control, even if you try to do everything to control them, it ain't your fucking fault.
Yeah, it's IGL Alliance over there, but you know what it's like. And ultimately, it doesn't really matter what we think. It doesn't even matter what AleksiB thinks about the Asterisk. What matters is that the community perception of him, and the players a lot of the time do align with what the fans generally think, are going to think AleksiB, fuck, he's had 24 chances and he's shit now. That's what the perception is going to be if this lineup fails, and you clearly think it will. So then what's next?
Yeah, I don't think it'll be any
he
fault
can't
of
keep
him.
failing upwards. He can't keep getting better teams after bad results. Like,
you know what will happen next? He'll just go and find 4 Finnish crackheads and be in a random major final again.
Maybe, but ultimately it is a case of,
funnily enough,
his career
he's
is one of
IGL.
Yeah, he's a really good IGL, but at the end of the day, like, it is a results business. It's a results business. I'm going to go Richard Keys on you. It's a results business. You can't keep doing this. And yes, this lineup's not perfect. Of course, it's not perfect, but come on, you got to win games. You've got to win more games. And I think AleksiB, to be honest, I'm acting as if he's already lost all these games. I think that they might win a lot of these games. I think that AleksiB is good enough IGL, and there's good enough spread out rifle firepower, and Simple has to still be Simple at some point. They should still win some games. They should still win some fucking games. And I think we're kind of jumping the gun, just assuming they're going to be dog shit, to be honest. I think there's a chance that Ema can be back.
That is my job.
Yeah.
I hope so.
But
nice guy.
I really hope this team's really good, because it would prove a lot of our agendas, right? Like, it's
and it
the Alexi Ema pack.
And
the AleksiB Ema pack is one that, on paper, I think is really fucking good. And yeah, the weight of the NaVi jersey is huge. Like, for Alexi 2, like, I don't care what you say, like, as big an org G2 is, like, NaVi's just different. NaVi is completely different. Being the first international players in NaVi is ridiculously massive, and they're aware of that. They definitely are aware of that. So that's kind of where it's at. We're at the point where expectations are that this lineup will fail, and then at the same time, if it does fail, then it's AleksiB's fault, and that he's going to get his reputation tarnished again. And to be honest, like, it's really hard for me to land on what I will think when this happens, because all lineups come to an end eventually. I do always flip flop, but it's more that I just see something that's different to how it used to be, and I thought, you know what, actually, I want to change my opinion. And AleksiB is teetering. He's teetering. I'm a big fan of him. I think you can visibly see the idea behind a lot of his calls, and I think you can't say that for loads of IGLs. I think in NIP, I think he actually was doing a really good job, like a really good job. Removing him, I know what Config said in the interview. I know that I know that he disagreed with a lot of the calls, but of course he did. Like, you want to give freedom to players that are aggressive as Brolan and Config or whatever, but ultimately they're dog shit. So AleksiB is fine coming structure, if you ask me. And in this team, it's kind of the same. I feel like, well, we're going to end up in the same place. He's going to get called up for micromanaging because Ema and Bit and JL aren't playing as well as they should. And then that's when AleksiB takes more control, and that's when it doesn't get better and it just keeps getting worse. And if that does happen and he does get called out for the micromanage thing, which ultimately just doesn't seem that true. Like in G2, he didn't micromanage anyone, did he? So I think the micromanage only comes out if he doesn't have faith in his players. And we'll see if he has faith in his players in the next few months. I really hope he does and that they can pay him back, because this team has, like, I know on paper it's a bit Frankenstein-y, but I wouldn't be surprised if it won a few trophies. Like, there's enough there. There's enough there. There's
I'd be
enough there.
fucking surprised. No, there isn't. No, there isn't.
Not like the major, but a few.
Look. I know they beat G2 once, but when G2 give a fuck, they will smack this NaVi team about the park every single fucking time. Vitality will smack this NaVi team about the park every single fucking time. ENCE will smack this NaVi team about the park every single fucking time. There are so many teams that are so much better than them, and unless they all magically knock each other out, NaVi will not win a title with this lineup. So, I've made my thoughts clear. I've now got one question to pose to you before we depart. What is success for this roster, and does it involve, despite it being NaVi, despite it feeling so wrong to even say this, because NaVi is probably a top 3, bare minimum top 5 organisation in Counter-Strike history, does it involve you bringing the expectations of what NaVi means down?
Of course it does. Of course it does. It's a huge change. The war has changed everything about expectations for NaVi. Everything. It's a completely different scenario they're in. I think success would be having Ema and Simple compete with Spinks and Zywoo. Like, individually, I think that would be a good sign that they've got their GMing right on Ema and that Simple is still here to fuck about. And, the rest of the team actually, results-wise, getting into playoffs consistently. That was always something that NaVi did. That would be good to keep that going. Like, that old NaVi team was in playoffs like 20 tournaments in a row or something stupid. Like, even when they dropped off, they were still getting playoffs every time. So NaVi need to be in playoffs, not just for like the guys in NaVi's careers right now, but also like Counter-Strike viewership wise. We need NaVi to be good. And AleksiB, I don't know. This is kind of the project that I'm going to judge him on most. I think as hard as it is with all the aspects we mentioned with Blade and everything, I think success for me is that AleksiB gets the best out of Ema and can take credit for it, and we'll all be very happy about it. That's what I'm looking for in this team. Trophies, yeah, I know I said that they could win a few trophies. I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't. But a few Mickey Mouse trophies would be pretty great. Like win the odd glass
Get a
banana
CCT,
cup.
lads.
Yeah, CCT would be great. Like an ESL Melbourne. Go to those. That's the thing. I know it's NaVi. I don't care. You need to do what ENCE did and go to the smaller tournaments to learn how to win. Because when you're a top 10 team, like in all these partner leagues, a lot of the time you're losing. You just lose in groups all the time. You need to learn how to be the best team at the tournament and to win and get some confidence in Ema. Go to these shit lands and win. That's what I want to see. And then you can try the bigger lands. And then you can try some of the bigger lands. But that's a very long answer. But in short, win a few trophies, get the best out of Ema. That's what I would see as success for AleksiB and NaVi in general.
Right. Well, that's not happening. But anyway, what do you guys think? What are your expectations for this NaVi team now you've seen them play for 2 months? Because mine are obviously piss low and Harry's are a little bit higher than that.
I'm not sky high. Not sky high, but I just have to be positive when I've paired with you.
Yeah, well, not every time. Wait until we talk about Borope, and until you've actually played CS2, and then we talk about CS2, and you're going to hate it, and it's going to be so beautiful. But anyway, other than that, like the video, subscribe to the channel. We're sorry this one took the piss, many technical difficulties and whatnot. But I've been Sam Animo Mackenzie, he's been Harry Flip Flop Richards, and we'll see you in the next one.